Hey guys, tonight we plunge into the boiling cauldron of divine paranoia, baby saving schemes, and a family so dysfunctional it makes your last Thanksgiving look like a spa retreat. The title might sound like a joke, but trust me, Zeus was very much not laughing when it came to his mom's cooking. Why? Because once upon a time, soup was a death sentence. Not metaphorically, literally. You're about to find out how that all started. The heat hits your face like a furnace. You're standing in a stone hall bigger than a football stadium where the air smells of incense, sweat, and something meaty. In the center of the room, a giant black cauldron bubbles ominously. You try not to breathe too deeply. You're not alone here. Rhea stands nearby, clutching her stomach, eyes wide and haunted. Cronus, her husband and the not-so-proud father of the gods, paces the floor. He's humming. Cheerful. Too cheerful. That's when you see him do it. The infant, barely wrapped in linen, is plucked from Rhea's arms. Her scream is silent, choked off before it's born. You want to shout, to grab the baby, to do something, but you're rooted in place. Cronus lifts the child high over the cauldron, mutters something that sounds like a toast, and then splash. The scream that follows isn't Rhea's, it's yours. A raw, instinctual reaction as the realization slams you. This soup isn't food. It's containment. It's erasure. Cronus is swallowing his own children, body and soul, and turning them into a primordial stew. Now, here's the twisted logic behind it. Cronus had a prophecy problem. According to the old earth goddess Gaia, who, by the way, never misses when it comes to divine predictions, one of his children would overthrow him. And if you're a titan who just overthrew your own dad, you start to see prophecy less as superstition and more as a family curse. So Cronus, in an absolutely deranged leap of logic, decides, if I eat all my kids, they can't betray me. Historians still argue whether this symbolic act reflected an actual ritualistic fear in early cultures of being consumed by the next generation. But whether metaphor or myth, Cronus took it literally. And so, one by one, he does it. First Hestia, then Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, all gone, digested, neutralized. No ceremony, no mourning, just slurped into non-existence with the casual cruelty only a power-hungry immortal can manage. You glance at Rhea. Her face is stone now, unreadable, but the way her hands grip her robe tells you everything. She's breaking, and not the loud, sobbing kind of break. No, this is the quiet, plotting kind. She doesn't scream, she doesn't protest, she watches, she waits. Now here's a juicy historical tidbit. In ancient Crete, some scholars believe early fertility rituals may have included mock sacrifices or reenactments involving symbolic ingestion to symbolize divine absorption. It's possible this myth twisted that idea, cranking the horror dial up to 11, and you're still standing here, sweat trickling down your neck as Cronus licks his fingers and stretches like he just finished a good meal. That should do it, he says. No overthrows today. The dude even burps. Disgusting. What's worse? He doesn't look like a monster. Not exactly. More like your intimidating uncle who definitely peaked in high school and now spends weekends yelling at sports on TV. He's terrifying precisely because he looks human, but acts with inhuman certainty. You glance at the cauldron again. It bubbles serenely now, the surface smooth. You know what's inside. Not ingredients, not stock. Gods. Future thunder wielders and underworld rulers, dissolved into Cronus's eternal digestion. You probably won't survive this, by the way. Just saying. You're a bystander in the House of Madness, and if Cronus even suspects you're not on board with the whole baby soup agenda, you're going in next. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is over there. I'm always curious how many of you are out there late night time traveling with me. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You back away slowly, slipping into the shadows as Cronus yawns and flops onto his throne, a divine dad bod lounging atop a legacy of cannibalism. Lovely. But Rhea doesn't follow you. She stands perfectly still, one hand on her belly, the other clenched into a fist. And here's the thing. You know there's another baby on the way. Her last, her final chance to get one past Cronus. The question is, what kind of mother risks it all after losing 5 children to a husband who treats parenting like competitive digestion? Well, turns out Rhea's not done yet. And neither are you. because next time, you're going to help her pull off the riskiest kitchen con job in mythology. And trust me, it's going to involve a very crunchy rock. Word count, awaiting continue, behind a crumbling pillar as Rhea slips out of the hall, moving like someone who's already halfway invisible. Her bare feet make no sound on the stone floor. She doesn't look back at Cronus. She doesn't need to. She's seen enough to know she's on her own now. The night air is thick and fragrant, somewhere between fresh olives and panic. You follow her through the winding mountain paths of the ancient world, torches flickering along ridgelines, shadows looming like gods in waiting, and all the while she holds her belly protectively. Her sixth child grows inside her, another potential target, another mouthful for Cronus's divine digestion. This time, though, she's not just hoping, she's planning. It's a strange thing to be part of a conspiracy against a titan. You feel the weight of every step, the urgency hiding behind every bush. And then she brings you to a tiny stone cottage, halfway embedded into the cliffside. Inside, a low fire crackles, a goat bleats softly, a single old woman, sharp-eyed, unsmiling, waits. This, Rhea murmurs, is Amalthea. She will help raise him. You blink. Raise who? Then you realize what she means. Rhea's gonna fake the birth, fake the handoff, fake everything. Her plan is as simple as it is wild. Deliver the real baby in secret and give Cronus something else to swallow. And this something else isn't just clever, it's heavy. A rock. Not just any rock, a perfectly baby-sized one, carefully swaddled in soft cloth, painted with a touch of blood for realism. As far as Cronus will know, it's just another meal. Crunchy on the inside, cozy on the outside. Here's a fascinating historical note. Some scholars believe this element of the myth reflects ancient burial rituals where rocks were placed in tombs as stand-ins for missing bodies, a symbolic gesture to protect the dead or confuse malevolent forces. In this case, the rock isn't honoring the dead, it's preserving the living. You help carry the bundle. It's weird, emotional, kind of like carrying the fate of the universe disguised as a petrified meatloaf. When the labor comes, it's brutal. Rhea clutches your hand so hard your fingers go numb. The cave echoes with her cries. And then, the moment arrives. A baby boy, wailing and wriggling and utterly unaware he's the key to toppling the king of the cosmos. Zeus. You know the name, of course. King of the gods, thunder hurler, bull impersonator. But right now, he's just a slippery, wide-eyed infant with a powerful pair of lungs and a future so big it might explode if you breathe on it wrong. And now the real danger begins. Rhea has to return. Pretend the baby died. Pretend she's grieving. You're with her as she bathes the rock in goat's blood and wraps it in linens. It's morbid. It's absurd. It's desperation wearing lipstick. Back in the Great Hall, Cronus looks bored. He perks up slightly when he sees the bundle. Another one? He says, picking his teeth with what you really hope isn't a tiny rib bone. You're nothing if not productive, Rhea. She nods silently and hands him the swaddled stone. You don't blink. You can't. This is the moment where everything could unravel. Maybe he'll notice. Maybe the weight will feel wrong. Maybe he's finally tired of soup. But nope. Cronus stretches, yawns, and drops the bundle down his throat like a midnight snack. No chewing, just one massive gulp. The rock disappears. He belches. Ugh, crunchy, he mutters, rubbing his belly. Was that one a boy? Rhea nods. Pity, he says, then promptly falls on his throne. You don't breathe until she's dragged you back out into the courtyard. That's the last one, she whispers. The only one left. Now let's talk about something weird for a second, because here's where fringe mythology takes over. Some ancient versions of the myth suggest Cronus didn't actually digest his children in the way we think. Instead, he held them in a sort of suspended dimension inside his belly, alive but frozen, like divine leftovers in a cosmic Tupperware. Historians still argue whether this metaphor represents spiritual imprisonment, repression of the next generation's power, or just a really bad metaphor for parenting. You sit by the fire that night with Rhea and Amalthea. Baby Zeus sleeps nearby, face twitching with the beginnings of dreams. Dreams of thunder, rebellion, or just warm milk? Hard to say. The mountain winds howl outside. You pull your cloak tighter. Somewhere down the hill, Cronus is snoring like a beast. But here, in this quiet stone cave, a new kind of power is growing. The kind that comes not from muscle or hunger or fire, but from patience, from letting the bad guy get comfortable, letting him believe he's won. And you're right here at the beginning. You rock the cradle gently, and Zeus hiccups once, then sighs. The gods have been swallowed. The Titans rule the sky. But the war is coming, and it all starts with a rock and a blanket. Awaiting, continue. Morning in the mountains is cold, sharp, and golden. You wake to the sounds of goat hooves tapping across stone and a baby wailing with the fury of someone who's just discovered they exist. Zeus is not a peaceful infant. He cries like thunder already. Amalthea, the goat who feeds him, nuzzles him gently. He headbutts her in return. The bond between them is oddly fierce. You stretch, bones popping as the sun rises over Mount Ida. This is Crete. Rugged, sacred, and ancient. The kind of place where time folds over itself, where myths are as common as goats, and everyone seems to know something they're not telling you. Rhea's gone, slipping back into her queenly role beside Cronus. She had to. If she lingers too long near her real son, suspicion will bubble up faster than stew in a titan's gut. Now it's up to Amalthea and you. You're a babysitter to a storm god in training. No pressure. The cave is hidden well, tucked beneath a rock overhang, shielded by ancient olive trees and echoing with whispers from the past. Inside, the Coretus keep watch. They're warriors, yes, but more than that. Dancers, drummers, chanters. Their job? To drown out Zeus's cries with endless music and stomping. It's a party with a purpose. Keep Cronus from hearing the one thing that could unravel his paranoid peace. And it works. Every time Zeus lets out a banshee wail, the Coretes leap into a frenzy, clanging shields, hollering battle chants, and stomping so hard your teeth rattle. It's ridiculous. It's exhausting. It's effective. Here's a fun historical twist. Some believe the Coretes were real Cretan priest warriors who performed ritual dances to protect sacred rites. Their stomping may have symbolized the earth-shaking power of divine birth, a mythological remix of ancient spiritual practices. Zeus, meanwhile, grows like a weed on steroids. In a few weeks, he's crawling. A few more and he's walking, if you can call it that. He doesn't toddle so much as charge. You spend most of your days chasing him through the underbrush, trying to keep him from leaping off cliffs or challenging bears to duels. His favorite toy? A thunder-shaped stick. He waves it around like it actually does something. You'd laugh until it accidentally scorches the cave wall. Okay. Not a toy. He's not like other children. His temper flares hot and fast. He can charm a snake with a smile, then toss his bowl at your head 5 seconds later because the honey wasn't ambrosial enough. You learn quickly to stay one step ahead, or at least out of throwing range. Still, there's a sweetness under all that drama. At night, when the fire is low and the music fades, Zeus curls up beside you, snoring softly, his little fists clutching goat fur. You stroke his hair and wonder what kind of god he'll become. There's a moment, just one, when you think maybe the prophecy was wrong. Maybe this kid doesn't have to grow into a tyrant toppler. Maybe he can just be. But then he dreams again. And in his sleep, he whispers a name, Cronus. Even now, before he knows the truth, some part of him remembers. Remembers being swallowed, or maybe remembers what fate has written in ink too thick to erase. Historians still argue whether Zeus's early upbringing on Mount Ida reflects the evolution of Greek divine archetypes from local Cretan worship, where sky gods were often linked to mountain sanctuaries and horned animals. The goats, the cave, the music, it all might be older than Zeus himself. Amalthea gets older, slower. She's no ordinary goat, but even divine beasts can't outrun time. One morning you wake to find her still, peaceful. Zeus doesn't cry. He kneels beside her, touches her fur, and stays silent for hours. That evening, he does something strange. He carves a small horn from her remains, carefully, reverently, and hands it to you. "This is for the future," he says, voice deeper than it should be. "It'll never run dry." And just like that, the cornucopia is born. A symbol of plenty, a fragment of his childhood, wrapped in loss and abundance. You bury Amalthea under a crescent moon. The Coretes hum a soft, slow rhythm. Zeus places the horn atop her grave. He doesn't cry, but you do. The cave feels different after that, lighter, emptier. Like the first act has ended and something darker is about to begin. Because Zeus is getting older, stronger, smarter, and he's starting to ask questions. Where's my mother? Why don't I live in the palace? Why do I dream of fire and soup? You have no answers, not the kind he wants, but he sees through you. Even as a child, his eyes hold storms. One day he tells you, I'm going to break the sky open. You try to laugh. He doesn't. You remember something Amalthea once said before she passed. This child will split the world with his breath, but only if he learns to breathe. And so you wait, and you teach him how to hide, how to listen, how to stay alive. Because the day is coming when Cronus will sense the storm forming on the edge of his kingdom. And when he does, soup won't save him. You sit at the mouth of the cave that night, watching stars burn above you, and you wonder, can a god raised on lies grow into something true? Or will he just become another mouth with a throne? Awaiting continue. Zeus is no longer a child. You blink and the boy who once wrestled with baby goats is suddenly a young man, broad-shouldered, bright-eyed, and exuding the kind of confidence that usually comes right before a thunderstorm or a very bad idea. He's impatient now, always pacing, always watching the horizon like he's expecting the sky to answer him back. And maybe it does. The cave that once kept him safe now feels like a cage. The songs of the Coronis, once a vital shield, sound to him like lullabies meant for babies. Even the cornucopia, once cherished, now sits dusty in the corner. Zeus is ready to move, to act, to strike. You see it in the way he holds silence like a weapon, the way his words have lost their roundness. He speaks in lightning bolts, quick, sharp, and impossible to ignore. One day, as the wind shifts and the first autumn leaves tumble down the cliffs of Mount Ida, he looks you dead in the eye. It's time. You don't ask what he means. You know. He wants to face Cronus, the father he's never met, the monster in his dreams, the god who swallowed his siblings whole and belched with satisfaction. But you're not ready, you say. He raises an eyebrow. I was born ready. Classic Zeus. So you delay. Distract. Remind him that Cronus isn't just a titan. He's the titan. Ruler of the heavens, devourer of threats, and possessor of a deeply unhinged digestive system. You remind him that this isn't a cartoon, that this ends in blood or banishment. Zeus being Zeus grins. I don't want revenge, he says. I want a reckoning. There's a difference, you realize. One is emotional, the other is cosmic. So you take him to see her. Medes. She's not what you expect. Quiet, dignified. Her presence doesn't demand attention, it invites it. She lives on the edge of the world, somewhere between ocean foam and shadow, the kind of place where time slows and thoughts get louder. Medes was once an Oceanid, a daughter of the sea, wise beyond reason. Some call her the goddess of deep thought. Others call her dangerous. Both are probably true. She doesn't flinch when she sees Zeus, doesn't bow, she just studies him. Too much pride, she says, but not enough understanding. Zeus scowls. You wince. He hates being underestimated. But Medes isn't cruel. She's honest. You'll need more than a thunderbolt and a grudge, she tells him. Cronus devours what threatens him. You want to win? Don't threaten. Trick. And there it is, the plan. A potion. Something subtle. Something ancient. Something that doesn't kill, but unwinds. A concoction that will turn Cronus's insides against him. Not violently, but gently. Enough to force his stomach to return what it never should have taken. It's a blend of herbs that only grow at the edge of the world. You help gather them. Thistle, black poppy, something that smells suspiciously like shame. The final ingredient? A drop of ichor from Zeus's own blood. Why? Because it's personal. Because what swallowed must recognize what was lost. Mainstream historical note time. Medes, in some versions of Greek lore, becomes pregnant with the child fated to surpass Zeus. In fear of this, Zeus later swallows her whole, echoing the sins of his father. Historians still argue whether this was an allegory for patriarchal fear of feminine wisdom, or just a deeply weird obsession with stomach-related metaphors. Back to the plan. Zeus disguises himself. Not well. He's still glowing slightly and can't stop flexing when he thinks you're not looking, but well enough. The idea is to approach Cronus as a humble cupbearer. Offer him a drink. Smile. Wait. You follow at a distance as he approaches the palace. It's massive. Carved from obsidian, covered in vines that seem to whisper. The throne of Cronus rises like a mountain itself, and the Titan reclines upon it, scepter in one hand, fruit in the other. He looks bored, as usual, and then Zeus enters. You expect shouting, fire, drama. Instead, Cronus raises an eyebrow. New servant? Zeus bows. Yes, my lord. The voice is steady, smooth, a little too polite. Cronus grunts. You're late, bring me wine. So Zeus does. You watch from the shadows as he pours the potion into a golden goblet. Cronus doesn't notice. He's too busy complaining about the weather. He drinks, and everything slows. At first, nothing happens. Cronus mutters something about the wine being earthy. Then he blinks, shudders, grips his belly. Was that, he begins. And then, with a groan that echoes through the heavens, Cronus falls from his throne. It's not violent, not dramatic, just deeply unsettling. He vomits. One by one, full-grown gods emerge from his gut, slippery, blinking, slightly confused. First Hestia, then Demeter, then Hera. Hades stumbles out next, followed by Poseidon, who immediately demands a bath. Zeus watches, expression unreadable. And for a moment, just a moment, Cronus looks small. Defeated not by war, but by his own body. Betrayed not by blade, but by cleverness. Zeus doesn't gloat. He simply turns to his siblings. Are you ready to take back the world? And just like that, the war begins. The war doesn't begin with a bang. It begins with a silence so deep it swallows your breath. Cronus, curled at the base of his throne, trembles. He clutches his stomach like the betrayal came from his own bones, which, honestly, it kind of did. His children, once shadows inside him, now stand tall. Regal, glowing. Zeus steps forward, not as a sun, but as a storm. You've ruled long enough. Cronus doesn't reply. He simply vanishes, melting into mist like a bad dream escaping the morning. Cowardly? Sure, but strategic. He's not beaten yet, just delayed. And then the ground shakes. Mountains groan, rivers twist backward, the air thickens, heavy with the scent of something old waking up. You clutch the wall, heart pounding. You know what's coming. The tyrannical. 10 years of God versus Titan, sky against earth, sibling versus sibling. It won't be clean, it won't be noble, but it will be unforgettable. The Olympians, Zeus and his newly regurgitated siblings, don't waste time. They retreat to Mount Olympus, which isn't a palace yet. It's just a mountain, cold, jagged, and high enough to make your ears pop. But it's theirs now. A home above Cronus's reach, a throne of air and light. Their allies? Sparse at first. Hestia builds hearths in secret caves. Hera negotiates with river spirits. Demeter? She talks to the wheat, because apparently the plants are very opinionated. Hades and Poseidon, meanwhile, spend their time forging weapons and muttering darkly. Hades invents something terrifying called invisibility, while Poseidon keeps threatening to invent the ocean. You don't ask. Zeus begins collecting thunder. Not lightning, thunder. The sound of the world cracking open. He stores it in clay jars, wraps them in goat hide, and hides them in the clouds like a squirrel hoarding very loud acorns. The Titans respond, of course. Cronus rallies his brothers, Hyperion, Iapetus, Cuius, Creus, and Oceanus. Together, they form a wall of elemental fury. Each one commands pieces of the cosmos, time, stars, destruction, oceans. They're like the final bosses of an ancient video game, except there's no cheat code, just pain. And then there's Atlas. Tall, scowling, and convinced that lifting heavy things is a personality trait. He carries a mountain for fun and once arm wrestled a glacier into submission. You're not ready for this. Nobody is. The first battle takes place on the Thessalian plains. The ground splits, trees ignite, clouds flee. You ride into war on a chariot pulled by solar deer, because why not, and immediately regret your life choices. It's chaos. Titans fling mountains like pebbles. Zeus hurls lightning with the accuracy of a caffeine-fueled gamer. Demeter grows strangling vines from the soil. Hera weaponizes the air, and Hades disappears only to reappear behind Titans and whisper, "Boo," before stabbing them in the ankle. Historians still argue whether the Titanomachy reflects real historical tensions, like the clash between older matriarchal earth cults and the rising patriarchal sky god systems. Some even suspect it mirrors Bronze Age invasions, reimagined as cosmic family drama. Either way, it's loud. One fringe tidbit, ancient Greek soldiers used to shout, "Zeus is watching," before charging into battle. Nobody knows if that was comforting or terrifying. By year 3, morale dips. By year 5, gods start getting twitchy. Poseidon nearly floods Thessaly out of spite. Hades briefly considers switching sides just to speed things up. And Zeus? He paces constantly, murmuring Medes' name under his breath. You visit her again. She's calm as always, brewing something, thinking in spirals. You need reinforcements, she says. Something older than Titans. Something deeper. She means the Hecaton chairs and Cyclopes, the ones Cronus imprisoned in Tartarus, the ones with 100 arms and 1 blazing eye. Not exactly dinner party guests, but extremely effective in battle. Zeus agrees. He journeys to Tartarus, alone. You don't go, you won't go. No one sane does. The place is a pit of screams, lined with unblinking shadows and rivers made of regret. Zeus descends anyway, wrapped in thunder and hubris, and strikes a deal. Fight for me, he says, and I will free you. And they do. The Cyclopes gift him thunderbolts, polished, divine, nuclear. Each one is a miniature apocalypse. Poseidon receives a trident that can split continents. Hades, a helmet that makes him disappear entirely. Again, very on brand. Together, the Olympians return to the war with weapons that hum with fate. Year 9 is a massacre, for both sides. Titans fall, gods bleed, Zeus burns a crater into Thessaly so deep it echoes. Atlas finally stops monologuing and starts hurling trees. Hera strangles Creus with a necklace. Hades turns invisible and whisper punches Hyperion in the spleen. And then, year 10. The final battle. It happens in the sky. Literally. Cronus and Zeus meet above the clouds, surrounded by lightning and screaming winds. It's not just a fight, it's a trial, a cosmic courtroom, one where every punch is an argument, every bolt a closing statement. Cronus has size, experience, and the raw weight of time behind him. Zeus has fury and soup. Because here's the twist. Cronus still fears the soup, the one that tricked him. He flinches when Zeus mentions it, and in that flicker of fear, Zeus strikes. One thunderbolt, straight through the chest. Cronus falls, he doesn't die. Gods rarely do. He just stops, trapped, bound in chains of lightning and irony, exiled to the edge of time. Zeus lands, breath ragged, hair smoking. He turns to you. It's done. But it's not. Not really. Because winning a war is one thing. Ruling a world? That's the real storm. Awaiting? Continue. You're still catching your breath from the final battle when Zeus begins building his kingdom. Victory does something strange to him. He doesn't celebrate like a mortal might, with dancing, wine, or a long nap on a bear fur rug. No, Zeus celebrates by reorganizing the cosmos. Very type A of him. First order of business, dividing the universe. You sit beside him as he sketches out the plan in the sky itself, tracing constellations into rough property lines. We'll each get our domain, he mutters. No overlap, no arguments. You glance at Hades and Poseidon. They look unconvinced. Still, the brothers gather. They draw lots, literally. 3 golden sticks pulled from a thunderstruck olive tree. It feels too casual for what's at stake, but the gods like to pretend fate's just a game. Zeus draws the sky, Poseidon gets the sea, Hades gets the underworld, and you? You get motion sickness from how fast things start shifting. Zeus claims Olympus as his seat of power. He carves a palace from cloudstone and moonlight, trimming the halls with wind itself. Golden eagles perch on every ledge. The roof sparkles with stars not yet named. There are thrones for each god, but only one in the center. Higher, grander, his. He sits on it like it was always waiting for him. But here's the thing. Ruling is boring. Zeus hates the paperwork. He bristles at ceremony. And no one warns him that gods are terrible co-workers. Hera complains constantly about decor, about etiquette, about Zeus's habit of showing up to formal banquets shirtless. Poseidon throws saltwater tantrums when he's not invited to meetings. Hades rarely shows up at all. Even the minor deities cause problems. Hermes steals everyone's sandals. Dionysus keeps turning water coolers into wine. And Ares? Ares challenges the mailman to a duel. So Zeus adapts. He creates rules, lots of them. You watch as he drafts something like a cosmic constitution. Which god gets worship on which days? What offerings are acceptable? Spoiler, never bring Zeus kale. And how often lightning can be used to settle personal disputes. Surprisingly often. Historians still argue whether these early Olympian laws were modeled on Bronze Age temple codes or served as metaphors for the establishment of social order after chaos. Either way, it's governance with drama. But something's bothering Zeus. You notice it late one evening as he stares across the starscape, arms folded, jaw tense. You okay? You ask. I hear her voice, he says. You mean Metis? He nods. You don't remind him that Metis vanished shortly after the war ended. One version says she fled to avoid Zeus's growing ambition. Another whispers something stranger, that she merged with the wind, always watching, always advising. And then, quietly, Zeus admits something. I'm afraid. You blink? Of what? He takes a long time to answer. Then, that I'll become him. Cronus. His voice catches on the name like a fishhook. He's seen the cycle. How power twists, how fathers eat sons and sons overthrow fathers, and now he's the one with the throne. So naturally, he does something wildly unhinged to prevent history from repeating. He swallows Metis. Yes, you heard that right. One version says she was pregnant with a child of prophecy, Athena, born with wisdom too great for the world. Fearing that child would overthrow him, Zeus protects his rule the only way he knows how, by devouring the threat. But Metis isn't just a threat. She's thought itself. And so instead of silencing her, he accidentally internalizes her. Now her wisdom whispers from within, guiding, correcting, offering commentary like an eternal backseat driver. Quirky tidbit? Some ancient vase paintings show Zeus rubbing his temples while tiny thought bubbles in the form of Metis scold him from inside his head. Ancient memes? Possibly. After the Metis merger, Zeus gets sharper. He listens more, thinks twice. He starts weaving cunning into his brute force. And ironically, this is what allows him to thrive. He establishes rituals, makes pacts with city-states, sends omens, shows up in dreams wearing disguises that are somewhere between majestic and mildly inappropriate. Yes, that time he turned into a swan is still talked about in dry academic conferences. But even as the gods settle into their shiny new order, there are rumblings beneath the surface. Hades starts building a kingdom of his own, a place of shadows, where the dead whisper secrets and time crawls like molasses. It's less punishment, more organization. Someone's got to deal with ghosts. Poseidon expands his reach under the sea. He talks to whales, fights sea monsters, builds coral palaces, and trains dolphins to deliver passive-aggressive messages. And Zeus? Zeus becomes the god people fear and worship in equal measure. He hurls lightning when bored. He invents storms just to feel something. He tests mortals with riddles, then rewards them with boons, or occasionally frogs. One historical fact: the earliest temples dedicated to Zeus date back to around the 8th century BCE, though some suggest worship of a sky father predates even that, reaching back into Minoan or Indo-European roots. Still, you can't shake the feeling that this whole king of the gods thing is getting heavy on Zeus's shoulders. He misses the cave sometimes, the goats, the quiet, and when no one's watching, he dips into the soup again. Not that soup, but the memory of it. The warmth, the trick. The moment he won, not by force, but by cleverness. Because deep down, even gods have cravings. Awaiting continue. You blink, and centuries pass. Mortals rise, cities bloom, temples stretch their marble arms toward Olympus, and Zeus becomes more than a god. He becomes an idea. Thunder in human shape. Justice with a beard. Kings name themselves after him. Poets carve his name into verses like it's a spell, and every time someone lifts their eyes to the stormy sky, they wonder if he's watching. Spoiler, he usually is. But power, as you've probably guessed by now, is a hungry thing. It doesn't just want to be held, it wants to grow. And while Zeus builds order and law, he also builds enemies, especially under the bedrock of the earth. Because you remember how Cronus locked up the monsters? Turns out, some of them weren't too thrilled about that. And now they're waking up. First come the whispers, mortals reporting nightmares of scales and smoke, rivers turning sour, animals abandoning forests. Then the earth itself begins to hum, low and angry, like it's remembering old wounds. You and Zeus sit high on Olympus, watching the horizon crackle. He frowns. They're stirring, he says. You ask who? He doesn't answer, but you already know. The giants. Born from Gaia herself, yes, Mother Earth. These aren't your garden variety giants. They're born of earth soaked in blood, sown in rage, and taller than any mountain. Each one comes out swinging, with a name you can't pronounce, and a grudge you definitely don't want to be on the receiving end of. And Gaia? She's not subtle about it. She's angry at how Zeus treated her children, how he threw titans into Tartarus and pretended that fixed everything. She wants balance. And when ancient goddesses want balance, they don't call for therapy. They call for war. Welcome to the Gigantomachy. Historians still argue whether this second divine war reflects lingering cultural clashes, like local chthonic earth-worshipping cults resisting the rise of patriarchal sky gods, or whether it's all symbolic fluff. But to you, it feels personal. Zeus once again must rally the gods. But this time, it's different. The Olympians aren't scrappy underdogs anymore. They're the establishment, the management, the upper crust. And they're out of practice. So the first few battles are, to put it kindly, a mess. Ares charges in immediately because of course he does, and is promptly punted into a volcano. Dionysus tries to confuse the giants by throwing a wine party mid-battle. Aphrodite accidentally distracts half the soldiers on both sides. It's chaos with excellent lighting. And then the giants unleash their ringer, Typhon. If the Titans were a storm, Typhon is the hurricane that eats storms. He's a creature stitched together from nightmares. 100 dragon heads for fingers, each spitting a different disaster. Lava, venom, taxes, you name it. One whisper says he's Gaia's final child. Another insists he's older than time, born when chaos coughed. Either way, he's here, and he wants Zeus's throne. You watch Zeus face him, just the two of them, in the dark above the sea. It's not like the Cronus fight. This is raw, brutal. Less poetry, more screaming. And for the first time, Zeus falters. Typhon rips out his sinews. Yes, his. Sinews. Zeus crashes into a cave somewhere in Cilicia, barely alive, muscles turned to jelly. You race to him, dodging snakes and falling stars, and find him trembling. Don't tell anyone, he gasps. Too late. The gods are panicking, but then something strange happens. Hermes steps forward. Yes, Hermes, the mischievous delivery boy with winged shoes and a habit of stealing things that don't belong to him. He steals Zeus's sinews back. Literally. Out from under Typhon's nose, rolls them up like pasta, and shoves them back into Zeus with the world's most mythological first aid kit. And Zeus? He rises. He's furious, scorched, and very, very done with this nonsense. He summons every bolt he's ever crafted, every shred of storm he's ever stored. He calls on Medes' whisper in his skull. He remembers the soup, the cave, the goat, and with one roar, he strikes. Typhon explodes, not in gore because but in sheer energy. Scattered across the sky, locked beneath volcanoes, trapped under the crust of the world. To this day, people blame eruptions on Typhon's size. And the giants? Without their leader, they fall like dominoes. Some are buried alive. Others turn into islands. Yes, islands. Next time you go to Sicily, remember, you're standing on the back of a defeated giant. After the war, there's silence again. A deeper one. Not fear this time, but awe. The gods gather around Zeus. He doesn't say much, he just looks at you, exhausted, and murmurs, "Is it over now?" You want to say yes. You really do. But gods don't get peace. They get legacy. And legacy, as you're about to find out, comes with baggage. You think you've earned a break after surviving Typhon's apocalypse salsa, but Olympus doesn't do rest. Not really. The clouds are still smoking, the throne slightly tilted from all the quaking, and Zeus is walking around with that look. You know the one. The what now look. Turns out, when you defeat giants and monsters, you don't just win battles. You win questions. Who keeps the peace now? Who judges mortals? Who makes sure no more volcano babies try to overthrow reality? Zeus, of course, has ideas. He's got a booming voice and an oversized throne to back them up. But the other gods? They're tired, a little twitchy, and full of opinions. Especially the women. Hera, queen of Olympus and Zeus's not entirely willing wife, has thoughts. She's over Zeus's lightning theatrics. She's over him turning into various animals to flirt with mortals. She's really over the way he avoids conflict by turning into fog and drifting off mid-argument. You can't just rule with thunder, she says, arms crossed. Zeus looks at you like, did she just say that? She did, and she's right. So he does what any immortal sky god would do when feeling uncertain. He throws a party. Specifically, a wedding banquet. And not for just anyone. For Thetis and Peleus, two relatively minor deities whose marriage will somehow trigger the greatest war in mythological history. But let's not skip ahead. For now, the banquet is stunning. Gold drips from the walls, nectar flows like soda at a kid's birthday. Every deity shows up, dressed like it's the Oscars, and everyone pretends to like each other for exactly 12 minutes. And then Eris arrives. The goddess of discord wasn't invited, because obviously, she walks in anyway and tosses a golden apple across the floor. On it, the words, "To the fairest." You can feel the temperature drop. Aphrodite, Hera, and Athena all eye the apple, then each other, then back at Zeus. You decide, they say. Zeus sweats. This is the kind of fight no one wins, so he punts the decision to a mortal named Paris. Not the city. The shepherd prince. Long story. And thus the seeds of the Trojan War are sown by a fruit, a cosmic fruit fight. That's Greek myth for you. Historians still argue whether this tale reflects real political tensions between Mycenaean city-states, or if it's a later poetic invention designed to make beauty contests look dangerous. Either way, it's a mess. Back on Olympus, Zeus is starting to get twitchy again. Not because of the apple incident, though that's definitely going to haunt him later, but because of a new unease in the air. He keeps hearing rumors, whispers of a child, one who will surpass him. And remember how that prophecy thing went for Cronus? Yeah, Zeus remembers too. He doesn't want history to repeat, so he goes full lockdown on his relationships. He starts treating every goddess like a potential threat, every pregnancy like a ticking time bomb. It's giving paranoid king with prophecy issues energy. Then something truly bizarre happens. Zeus gets a headache. Not just a normal headache, a cosmic migraine. You're standing nearby when he doubles over, gripping his temples, groaning like the sky itself is breaking. Everyone panics. Apollo suggests music. Ares offers to punch it out. Hephaestus, the blacksmith god, calmly walks up and hits Zeus in the skull with an axe. You flinch. And then from the gash in Zeus's forehead emerges Athena, fully grown, in armor, spear in hand, glowing like wisdom dipped in battle paint. You don't blink. You can't. Nobody can. She doesn't cry, doesn't crawl. She just nods at Zeus like, thanks for the lift, and steps into her role as goddess of wisdom, war, and strategic power. Quirky tidbit, some vase art shows Zeus smiling post-cranium surgery, like he's proud of himself. Others? He's holding his head like it still hurts 1,000 years later. Fair. And Athena? She's no ordinary goddess. She quickly becomes his favorite, his confidant, his advisor. Some say she's the part of Métis that survived, the distilled wisdom Zeus couldn't keep buried. Her presence changes Olympus. She brings a colder logic to the pantheon, balancing Ares' fury and Hermes' chaos. But more importantly, she changes Zeus. You notice it late one evening as he watches her teach mortals how to build ships, sculpt laws, and outsmart enemies without lifting a sword. His face softens. She's better than me, he murmurs. You don't disagree. He chuckles. And yet, I birthed her from my skull. So technically, you raise an eyebrow. Still counts as excellent parenting, he finishes. The gods adjust to Athena quickly. Hera doesn't love her, but respects her. Ares pretends not to be scared of her. He totally is. And mortals? They flock to her temples, offer olive branches, whisper prayers before battles and debates alike. Still, Zeus can't shake the prophecy. Athena may have emerged from him, but the whisper of child will overthrow hasn't gone away. If anything, it lingers louder now. He doesn't know where or who the real threat is anymore, and that makes him watch everything and everyone closely. He still throws lightning, still flexes his power like a bored bodybuilder, but deep inside, he's listening for footsteps that don't exist yet, the ones coming to challenge him, the ones history promised. So he tightens his grip, because it's not enough to win. You have to stay one. Word count, awaiting continue. By now, you've probably noticed something about Zeus. For all his thunder and bravado, he's kind of haunted. Not by ghosts, though knowing Greek mythology, you wouldn't put it past them, but by this constant echo of being next. He won the sky, crushed titans, burned monsters, and even managed to survive a daughter erupting from his forehead like a wisdom-themed volcano. And yet, he still checks over his shoulder. You see it at dinner. You see it in how he pauses before tossing bolts. You see it in how his eyes narrow every time a new god is born. He isn't just king anymore. He's a watchman. And tonight, he's watching someone very particular. Dionysus, the youngest Olympian, the party boy, god of wine, madness, revelry, and occasionally turning sailors into dolphins. Sounds chill, right? Except Dionysus is different. Very different. For starters, he dies, then comes back. Twice. And not in a metaphorical, he had a rough week sort of way, like actually dies. He's born of a mortal woman, Semele, who asks Zeus to show his true form. He does. She explodes. Zeus grabs the unborn baby and sews him into his thigh until it's time for round 2. Yes, his thigh. Quirky, right? But here's the part that matters. Dionysus is technically a mortal-born god. He lives among humans, suffers, feels loss, then climbs into Olympus like he owns the place. Zeus watches him like a hawk. Because Dionysus represents the opposite of order. He's chaos in glitter form. He doesn't build cities, he tears down walls and dances through the rubble. He doesn't give speeches, he hypnotizes crowds. He is everything Zeus spent centuries suppressing. Historians still argue whether Dionysus was a late addition to the Greek pantheon, absorbed from older Near Eastern wine cults, or whether he predates the Olympians entirely and simply showed up late to his own myth. Either way, he doesn't play by Olympus rules. And the mortals? They adore him. You see his cults grow faster than you can track. Women dancing barefoot in the woods, chanting under moonlight, young men giving up power and title just to follow him. Even the elders start sipping from goblets they used to scorn. Zeus frowns. He's too liked. You smirk. Jealous? He doesn't answer. Because deep down, Zeus understands something uncomfortable. Dionysus isn't threatening his throne by conquest. He's seducing the idea of Olympus. One night, you follow Zeus into a Bacchic festival, disguised, of course. He doesn't want to be recognized. The music is strange, wild. You feel it in your bones. People move like vines in wind, and Dionysus is at the center, barefoot, eyes glowing with a kind of joy that borders on insanity. Zeus steps into the clearing. Dionysus sees him. They just stare at each other. And for a heartbeat, the party stops. Wine freezes midair. The music holds its breath. Then Dionysus smiles, bowing to Zeus. And Zeus? He nods back. It's a rare moment, the storm god acknowledging the storm inside himself. Because Dionysus isn't here to overthrow Olympus. He's here to remind it that gods need mystery too. But even as Zeus accepts Dionysus into the fold, officially granting him a throne, he can't fully relax, because with each new power welcomed, the prophecy ticks louder in his ears. A child will rise above the father. Not just metaphorically, not symbolically, literally. And Dionysus, born of a mortal, resurrected by fire and madness, loved more than feared? He's dangerously close. You watch Zeus mull it over. He knows he can't crush Dionysus. It would turn the mortals against him. And besides, he's done enough devouring for one career. So instead, he gives Dionysus space. Lets him keep his followers. Smiles at his chaos, even when it burns temples and inspires uprisings. Because that's Zeus's new strategy. Inclusion. If he can't defeat the forces that challenge him, he'll absorb them. Wrap his thunder around their fire and claim it was his idea all along. Smart? Sure. Secure? Not even slightly. Because another whisper is starting to creep through the cracks. Not of rebellion this time, but of legacy. Of lineage. Of Zeus's own children becoming powerful enough to cast very long shadows. One child in particular. You know the one. Heracles. We'll get there soon enough. But first, let's talk about how the sky god, who once ate soup out of fear, is now quietly trying to outmaneuver his own offspring, just in case one of them has inherited not just his strength, but his ambition. Zeus is learning the hard way that keeping power isn't about keeping enemies close. It's about keeping your children closer. Awaiting continue. Here's Section 10, based precisely on your bullet outline. Section 10. You crouch on the edge of the cliff, eyes squinting into the darkness below. Tartarus. You've heard the name whispered since your goat milk days. The pit beneath everything, the gods, the earth, even chaos itself. And now you're heading straight for it. The air grows heavier as you descend, like thick velvet wrapping around your limbs. You've ditched your thunderbolt for now, too flashy for sneaking into the universe's deepest prison. Instead, you carry nothing but a torch and the quiet, nagging thought, this is probably a bad idea. The ground pulses beneath you with old pain. This is where the Titans stashed their biggest problems, the ones even they couldn't handle. Not just monsters, beings. Cosmic leftovers with teeth, too many fingers, and grudges that have been fermenting since the dawn of time. You reach the iron gates, taller than mountains, studded with bones that hum when you touch them. The torch sputters, uncertain whether to keep going. You do it anyway. Behind the gate are 3 figures, hulking shadows with eyes like coals and hands. Too many hands. You know their names. Briareus, Cottus, and Gyges, the Hecaton chairs. 100-handed giants. Brothers to the Titans betrayed by them, then locked down here to rot. They don't stir as you approach. They loom. You speak first, even though your voice cracks embarrassingly in your throat. Want out? There's a pause. Then 100 fists tighten at once like a drumbeat of rocks snapping in place. Mainstream historians agree. This myth symbolizes the cyclical nature of rebellion. How old powers imprison their rivals, only to be overthrown by the new generation doing the exact same thing. Classic family dysfunction with cosmic stakes. But this isn't a history class. This is you, in the dark, trying to sweet-talk creatures who once used volcanoes as beanbags. You offer them a deal. Freedom in exchange for one teensy favor. Help you obliterate the Titans, especially Cronus. They don't speak, there's no need. One steps forward and gently presses a finger the size of a tree trunk against your chest. You try not to flinch. It's oddly warm. Then the gate begins to groan. Not open, groan, like it's embarrassed to be part of this plan. You slide between rusted hinges as lava flows underfoot, making it feel like you're stepping on angry soup. There's a theory, fringe but fascinating, that Tartarus wasn't just a prison. Some scholars say it was alive, a sentient pit that wanted you to fail. That every time someone escaped, it let them go because it knew they'd come crawling back. As you guide the giants out, their footsteps shaking the void, you start to believe it. You feel Tartarus watching, not just with eyes, but with a grin. Still, you press on. The Hecatonchires follow without a word, but their loyalty isn't to you, it's to the chaos. You know this. They don't love Olympus. They don't love anything, really. They hate. And hate is useful right now. On your way back up, you pass by the other prisoners. A chimera snarls behind molten bars. A storm giant mutters something in a language that makes your ears bleed. And then there's a voice, a whisper. You're your father's son. You freeze. The voice is soft, but it cuts deeper than the jagged stones around you. It belongs to a shape you can't see, a blur in the shadows wrapped in smoke and time. You don't answer. You don't want to know who it is. You climb faster. Back on the surface, your siblings are waiting. Poseidon, sea breezy and perpetually annoyed. Hades, moody and already wearing black like it's a brand. Hera, Demeter, and Hestia, each trying very hard not to say, "We told you this was stupid." When the giants arrive, it's like bringing war elephants to a dinner party. They don't fit anywhere. They knock down mountains just trying to sit. But the Titans will hear those footsteps, and they'll know the war just changed. Historians still argue whether this myth marks the shift from mythic chaos to structured hierarchy, the birth of the Olympian regime. But what's not debated is the metaphor. Sometimes to defeat old tyranny, you have to unleash something even scarier. You lie awake that night on a bed of clouds, staring at the stars you plan to rule. But the whisper follows you. You're your father's son. What did it mean? And why does the ground still feel hot under your feet? Awaiting continue. You're not sure how to properly thank a 100-handed giant. A handshake seems impractical, and a gift basket feels insulting. But Briareus, Cottus, and Gyges don't care for thank yous anyway. They're already too busy pulling up entire chunks of mountainside and tossing them like children skipping stones. Welcome to the next phase of your war, unfiltered chaos. The Hecatonchires don't fight like gods or titans. They don't duel or shout dramatic battle cries. They simply throw. Forests, boulders, thunderclouds, you name it, they've weaponized it. You watch as Briareus uproots a peak like it's a stubborn weed and hurls it across the battlefield, where it crushes 2 Titan generals mid-snarl. You wince a little. That one's going to make the myth scrolls for sure. Poseidon, riding a tidal wave shaped like a wild horse, whistles low. Remind me never to cheat at cards with those guys. You chuckle, but your nerves are crackling, because while this might look like victory from a distance, you know better. The Titans won't go down without unleashing their own secret weapons, and they've got one very big name up their sleeve: Atlas. Historians agree on this. Atlas wasn't just another muscled villain. He was brilliant, strategic, a philosopher of war with biceps big enough to carry continents, and now he's stepping onto the field. You spot him striding across the scorched earth like it's a runway. His armor glows with celestial script. His glare finds you instantly. Zeus? He doesn't yell it. He states it. As if you're a disappointing junior manager who just ruined the quarterly lightning budget. You barely dodge his first attack, a comet he tosses underhand like it's a softball. The explosion throws you backward through 2 trees and a hill. That's when Gyges jumps in, arms flailing like a windstorm of limbs. But even 100 hands struggle against Atlas. The two clash in a thunderous blur, stone against flesh, sky against muscle, and you're pretty sure you see the moon blink out for a moment. Meanwhile, Hades and Poseidon are herding the Titans' foot soldiers, dracons, giants, and lava serpents, into trenches of boiling sea foam. Demeter is hurling stalks of wheat that erupt into vines and wrap around enemies like snakes. Hera? She's directing things in that big sister bossy tone that makes you accidentally stand straighter even during war. And you're pacing along a cliff, searching the sky. Because it's time for your next trick. You close your eyes. You remember the taste of ambrosia, the honeyed fire of your mother's soup. You raise your hand and whisper to the clouds. They answer. A storm gathers, not your average gloomy drizzle, but a divine tantrum. Bolts arch downward in zigzags. Thunder rumbles with your pulse. Lightning wraps around your fingers like glowing snakes. You open your eyes, and now you are terrifying. Even Atlas hesitates. You throw. One bolt, then two, then 20. Each finds its mark, lighting up the battlefield like a divine rave. The sky screams with your fury. You leap toward Atlas, lightning in both hands, aiming not to defeat, but to humble. It almost works. He catches one bolt barehanded and throws it back. It slams into your chest like a chariot, and you feel yourself tumble down, down, down into a crater made of your own failure. Fringe mythologies claim Atlas could manipulate raw sky stuff, something older than magic, older than the gods. And tonight, it shows. He raises both hands and tears open the clouds themselves, revealing stars spinning like panicked fireflies. You cough, spit out a mouthful of dust and pride, and try to stand. That's when Briareus barrels in again, all fists and fury. The fight becomes a blur. Atlas versus the Hecaton shares, your siblings versus the last stubborn titans, and you, somewhere in between, realizing that this war is not about glory anymore. It's about who lasts longest. Your mind flashes back to something Prometheus once said before he started stealing fire and getting liver punished for eternity. Victory is a candle in the wind, brother. Hold it too tightly, and you'll burn. You stumble forward anyway. The tide starts to turn. The titans falter. Your allies, if you can call this ragtag group of traumatized siblings and mountain-hurling giants allies, start to close in. And Atlas? Wounded. Trapped beneath 3 boulders and 100 hands. Even he can't lift this weight. You kneel beside him. You see no rage in his eyes now, just the terrible stillness of a general who knew this was coming. He doesn't beg. He doesn't speak. He only nods once as if to say, "Your move now." Historians still argue whether the punishment you give him next was justice or cruelty. You order him to stand, to lift the heavens on his back. Forever. There's no ceremony, no speech. Just you and a once mighty titan, shouldering the weight of stars, becoming the tragic sculpture known across time, Atlas holding up the sky. He doesn't scream. He just vanishes behind the cosmos. You feel a twinge of something in your chest. Not guilt. Never guilt. Maybe recognition. You've both inherited burdens you didn't ask for. And somewhere bubbling far away, you swear you can hear your mother's soup pot boiling again. Awaiting continue. The battlefield smells like wet ash and broken sky. Thunder still mutters above, like the storm's trying to make up its mind about whether to keep going. You stand at the edge of the scorched plain, hair singed, robes tattered, arms trembling, not with weakness, but with the eerie calm that follows after you've done the impossible. You've won. The Titan army lies in pieces. Some fled, some begged. Some were turned to stone mid-sentence by Hades' experimental glare. But the big one, the one that haunted your dreams since you could say Dad, Cronus, is still out there. And now it's personal. He appears without warning. No fanfare, no glowing aura, just a tall, gaunt figure walking out of the smoke, as casual as a man returning a poorly cooked meal to the kitchen. Zeus, he says. You don't answer. You know better than to let him steer the conversation. He's the original manipulator, the father of time, the baby eater. And he's looking at you like you still have formula on your face. He raises his scythe, the same one he used to slice up his father, Uranus, the same one that started this cosmic mess. You grip your lightning bolt tighter, pulse sinking with the crackle at your fingertips. Mainstream historical sources interpret this confrontation as the turning of the age, the shift from primordial chaos to Olympian order. Titans ruled with raw force and instinct. You plan to rule with law, structure, maybe even the occasional family council. But first, this. You charge. The sky splits open. Your bolt arcs through the heavens, trailing a tail of starfire. Cronus counters with a swipe of his scythe, slicing the air so sharply that space itself winces. The two forces collide, and for a moment there's only sound. Not a bang or boom, something deeper, like the universe itself exhaling. You hit the ground hard, roll, spring up. Cronus is already coming at you again, eyes like bottomless pits, mouth curled in something halfway between rage and relief. You should thank me, he growls. I made you. You ate me. You shoot back, hurling another bolt. He dodges, barely, but stumbles. You see it, the wobble in his stance. He's not immortal in the way you are. Titans age, Titans weaken. And this Titan, he's afraid. You press your advantage, one bolt, then another. Then you pour your power into one final, massive strike, your entire will crackling through the sky like a god's scream. You shout as you throw it. Cronus doesn't dodge this one. It hits him square in the chest, illuminating every bone in his body in a flash of white-hot glory. He flies backward, crashing into the side of a cliff, carving out a crater that still exists if you ever care to visit. For a second, you think it's over. Then he stands. He's smoking, barely holding his scythe, but he's laughing. "Oh, little god," he says, coughing smoke. "You've won a war, but you still don't understand the curse." You don't answer. You're too busy launching yourself forward, grabbing him by the collar like some mortal bar brawler, and hurling him into the sky. He lands, where else? In Tartarus. Chained, gagged, wrapped in shadows and timeless silence. The scythe is melted into the earth. You don't look back. Historians still debate what exactly happened to Cronus afterward. Some say he was imprisoned forever. Others believe he escaped later, sneaking into dreams and fables, whispering bitter advice to anyone feeling overly ambitious. You feel none of that now. What you do feel is a silence so enormous it rings in your ears. The war is done. The Titans are defeated. You stand on a battlefield shaped like a thunderbolt itself, zigzagging hills, scorched clouds, broken weapons turned into sculpture. Your siblings slowly gather. Poseidon's dragging a leviathan carcass behind him, grumbling about back pain. Hades is covered in ash and holding what might be the first proto-contract in history, something about future underworld arrangements. Demeter's brushing dirt off her sleeves and quietly growing flowers where her feet touch the earth. And Hera? She walks up to you and says, "Well, now what?" You're still panting, muscles aching, heart confused. Because here's the thing no one warned you about. You just did the thing. The big thing. And now, what happens after? You climb to the highest peak of Olympus, just to breathe. The wind bites your cheeks, but you welcome the sting. You raise your arms, not to summon lightning, but to steady yourself, to feel gravity and victory wrap around your shoulders like a new cloak. From this height, you can see the world stretching in all directions. Islands forming, rivers shimmering like silver ribbons. Mortals beginning to whisper stories of the gods, of you. And yet something simmers deep inside your memory. A sound, a smell, your mother's soup. It always comes back to that, doesn't it? That moment in the cave, that bowl, that plan, the trick that started it all. You wonder, did she know what it would turn you into? Was the soup just a potion or a prophecy? Fringe myths, the ones barely scratched into old stones, say the soup wasn't merely medicinal. That it spoke, that it whispered warnings into Rhea's ears as it boiled. Some say it wasn't even hers, that it came from Gaia, or chaos, or something older. You shake it off, but you know the truth. You're not done, not even close. You've defeated your father, you've taken the throne, but you've also inherited his fear. And somewhere out there, fate is already cooking something new. Word-getting, continue. You sit on a throne now, a real one this time, not the rock you used during the war or the makeshift seat made of enemy helmets. Hades thought that was hilarious. This is marble, smooth, cold, raised on a dais so your siblings have to look up when they speak. You're not entirely proud of that detail, but you're not exactly changing it either. You've declared Olympus the new capital of the cosmos. Nice views, great weather. Slightly above the clouds, so it always smells like fresh rain and ambition. Your siblings move into their new roles like awkward guests at a family reunion. Poseidon claims the oceans, of course, says he needs room to breathe, but really he just wants to ride sea beasts shirtless and brood. Hades volunteers for the underworld before anyone even asks. You think it's because he enjoys being the mysterious one. And your sisters. Demeter takes to growing things like she invented wheat, and maybe she did. Hestia starts lighting hearths everywhere, and Hera, well, Hera becomes queen, whether you voted for that or not. It all looks perfect, but it isn't. God, you're not just a rebel god, you're a ruler. And ruling, that's harder than fighting. Titans are predictable. Bureaucracy isn't. Suddenly, your days are filled with meetings, petitioners, divine complaints. Mortal prayers clogging up your inbox like celestial spam. Hera hands you a scroll listing every minor deity expecting a title. You scan the names. Hypnos, god of sleep. Nike, goddess of victory. A few others with suspiciously made-up sounding portfolios, like god of dramatic fog. You sigh. Mainstream historians see this era, the early days of Olympian rule, as a foundational moment in myth. A time when abstract ideas became personalized. Love wasn't just a feeling, it was Aphrodite. War wasn't a problem, it was Ares, a huge problem actually. The gods started reflecting human flaws. And your reflection? You're exhausted. Late one night, you sneak away, not to wage war, not to summon storms, just to walk. You head down from Olympus, past mortal villages where people light fires in your name. You slip into a marketplace. No one recognizes you. You kind of like it. There's a smell in the air, soup. You follow it, guided by memory as much as scent. A small hut, steam curling out the window like it's telling secrets. You peek inside. An old woman is stirring a pot. She looks up. You look hungry. You almost laugh. You're Zeus, king of the gods, lord of the skies, devourer of titans, well, in spirit. But yes, you are hungry. You sit. She serves you a bowl. It's not divine. It doesn't glow. It's probably just lentils. But the first spoonful wraps around your soul like a blanket. It reminds you of Rhea's cave, of safety, of beginnings. Big day? She asks. You shrug. Long decade. She nods. Doesn't press. Fringe scholars, often ignored by the academic mainstream, love stories like this. Little tales tucked between the epics. They claim this old woman is actually Hecate in disguise, or Gaia, or even Rhea herself checking in. But you don't ask, you just eat. When you leave, the stars seem quieter, the world a bit slower. You don't take the direct path back to Olympus. You meander, you breathe. But peace is short-lived. Back on Olympus, there's trouble. Again. Prometheus has done something reckless. Again. Apparently, he's stolen fire from your private vault and given it to mortals. And not just fire, the metaphorical stuff too. Curiosity. Invention. The guts to challenge fate. Now humans are out there inventing tools, cooking their own food, starting civilizations without asking for divine permission slips. You're livid, furious, and just the tiniest bit proud. You storm down to the mortal realm and confront him. Why? You ask. Prometheus shrugs. Because they needed it. Because we were them. Once. You don't like the answer. But you don't strike him down either. You chain him to a rock, sure. That's standard procedure. But deep down, you understand him. He just sped up what was already coming. Historians still argue whether Prometheus was a villain or the first hero, whether you punished him out of cruelty or necessity. But standing there, watching an eagle circle above his head, you don't feel like a victor. You feel like a parent, a reluctant one. Back on Olympus, the gods are celebrating another feast. Dionysus is passing around wine that makes your laughter echo for hours. Hermes is juggling moonstones while stealing everyone's sandals. Aphrodite flirts with mortals, immortals, and furniture alike. Even Ares, your least favorite war machine, is behaving, for now. You sit on your throne, you smile, you raise your goblet, but the smile fades the moment you taste the wine, because it reminds you of soup. And you realize, no matter how far you've come, no matter how many monsters you defeat, or how many realms you rule, your mother's soup will always linger. It's the memory of being small, of being protected, of being made. You excuse yourself. You stand outside the palace, alone under a galaxy you helped stabilize. Your breath curls in the cool air. You close your eyes and listen, not for prayers or omens or rebellion, but for something quiet, something simple. Maybe that's the real fear, isn't it? Not Tartarus, not Titans, not even prophecy, but the knowledge that someday your children will taste something familiar, that they'll rise up just like you did, and you'll be the one sitting in the dark, soup in hand, wondering if they remember how much you tried. Word count continue. The seasons shift, centuries pass like leaves in the wind. You don't age, not in the mortal sense, but time still wears on you in strange, slow ways. Like how a stone doesn't rot, but still weathers smooth after enough rainfall. You sit on your throne less now. You walk more, watch more, listen. Mortals grow bolder. They build cities, empires. They whisper less and demand more. They name planets after you, paint your stories into mosaics, write plays where you're sometimes noble, sometimes a joke with a thunderbolt. You take it all in stride. You've learned that ruling isn't about being loved. It's about balance, restraint, timing. But just as you're getting the hang of it, your children arrive. First Athena, bursting from your skull, fully grown and armored. Not your typical delivery. You still get migraines just thinking about it. Then Apollo and Artemis, radiant twins with a flair for drama and archery. Then Ares, who picks fights with furniture. Hermes, the messenger thief hustler you never asked for but definitely need. Hephaestus, Dionysus. And, oh yes, Heracles. Not quite a son, but close to bring divine-level headache. It's a full house now. And guess what? They're you in pieces. All the brilliance, arrogance, impatience, power. They challenge you, copy you, defy you. And you catch yourself doing the thing you swore never to do. You try to control them. You start writing rules, commandments, pantheon meeting agendas, which no one reads. You try to shape their fates before they can surprise you. But fate, as you should know by now, hates being micromanaged. Historians often refer to this period as the classical Olympus era, a golden age of divine storytelling, when the gods became less cosmic forces and more relatable characters. Family drama as theology, soap opera as sacred myth. You watch it unfold like a high-budget reality show where you can't cancel any episodes. One day, Hera corners you. She's holding a scroll. You instantly regret existing. What's this, you ask? Our children's latest infractions, she says. Athena started a war. Apollo cursed a lover. Hermes stole something. Again, you sigh. Which one? Everything, she replies. You sit back, rub your temples. I need soup. You need a vacation. It's a rare moment. You laugh. She does too, quietly, almost affectionately. Then you both stare at the horizon where storm clouds gather in the shape of yet another prophecy, because it never ends. There's always a new threat, giants rising from the earth, mortals challenging the gods, monsters that somehow escape Tartarus despite the impenetrable locks. And your children, they keep poking fate like it's a sleeping lion. You handle each crisis with practiced grace, mostly. But one day, a whisper reaches your ears that shakes you more than any battle cry. Zeus is afraid. It starts small. A temple priest says it under his breath. Then a poet writes it into a verse. A philosopher questions your motives, and suddenly it's everywhere, echoing like thunder that never actually strikes. You want to ignore it. You're Zeus, king of kings, fearless. But deep down, they're not wrong. You're afraid of losing control, of fading relevance, of becoming your father. The idea haunts you. You start watching your children like a paranoid librarian. Are they conspiring? Rising? Tasting soup in some secret cave? Fringe traditions, found in scrolls buried in sand or chiseled into forgotten temple walls, suggest that you became obsessed with stopping prophecy altogether. That you tried to erase fate, to outthink it. That you went so far as to swallow one of your own wives, Métis, for fear she'd give birth to someone greater than you. And the worst part? They say she lived inside you. Whispering strategies, feeding your paranoia, becoming a second mind, a voice you could never quiet. Historians still argue whether Métis was literally inside your body or just inside your thoughts, whether she was truly devoured or symbolically absorbed. But either way, you carry her wisdom, her warning, and from her, Athena is born, a daughter who matches your power, your mind, your hunger for order. She doesn't just inherit the storm, she controls it with perfect clarity. And now you see it, don't you? You are Cronus. Not in cruelty, but in fear, in trying to stop what can't be stopped, in holding too tightly to a throne that was never meant to last forever. One evening, as stars tremble above the sea, you walk alone. You find yourself in front of a small, long-forgotten shrine. The air smells like thyme and roasted grain. Inside, a single bowl of soup rests on a stone altar, still warm. You don't question it. You sit. You eat. Slowly. It's the same soup. Rhea's recipe. The one that changed the cosmos. The one that made you. The one that saved your siblings. The one that taught you. Beginnings always come with an end. And as the last spoonful slides down your throat, you realize something deeply, wildly comforting. Maybe you won't be the king forever. Maybe that's okay. Maybe someday, one of your children will rise, will do the impossible, will start a new age, and maybe, just maybe, they'll remember your laughter more than your thunder. You lean back, you watch the stars, you whisper to the sky, not a command, but a promise. When the time comes, I'll let go. The night air drapes around you like a velvet cloak, and for once you let yourself rest. Not because the sky is calm, far from it, Somewhere, Ares is probably starting another unnecessary war, Apollo is arguing with the muses over song royalties, and Hermes is absolutely stealing someone's sacred cow again. But you, for now, sit still. No thunder, no lightning, just quiet. You know what's coming next. You've seen the signs. The mortal kings who dare speak your name without bowing, the new gods whispering around the edges of belief, the philosophers drawing you into arguments you never agreed to join, and worst of all, the silence. The slow, creeping silence where once there were hymns and offerings. Historians call it the decline of the Olympians. Not a war, not a betrayal, just forgetfulness. Mortals shifting their attention, a cultural exhale. The rise of other powers, other heavens. The start of after you. But you? You already felt it long ago. In your bones, in your throne, in the way no one ever asks you what you want. It terrifies you, and it frees you. You start spending less time on Olympus, more time in the world below. You take new names, wander markets in worn sandals, tell stories about a god who used to rule everything, but now just wants to taste soup and be left alone. A little girl gives you a flower once, thinking you're a beggar. You keep it. Not because you're sentimental. Okay, partly because you're sentimental. But mostly because it reminds you of Demeter and how she once chased a storm away just by planting wheat. It reminds you of Persephone and her quiet defiance, of Hades, who ruled the underworld not with fear, but with the solemn dignity of someone who knows what it means to lose and still stand. You think about Cronus more these days, not just as the tyrant, but as a father, as someone who, like you, wanted to hold on just a little longer, who feared the future because it didn't have his name carved into it. You still don't forgive him, but you understand him. Scholars of myth often debate whether the gods feel the passage of time as mortals do, whether immortality dulls the sense of urgency. But you know the truth. Eternity sharpens it. Because when you've seen the full sweep of empires rise and crumble, when you've watched a child grow into a king and then into a legend, you realize how fragile even the mightiest story is. And your story? It's almost done. One evening, as twilight bleeds across the sky in a dozen shades of purple and gold, you return to the cave. That cave. The one Rhea hid you in. The one where it all began. It's smaller than you remember. The stone walls are worn smooth. There's moss now. Silence. And in the center, a cold hearth. You kneel, you strike flint. Just once, a spark, a flicker, a tiny flame. You don't call down lightning. You don't summon a divine blaze. You just light the fire the old way, the human way. And in its soft glow, you unpack a pouch. Inside, lentils, wild herbs, a single onion. You make soup. The steam rises gently, like a memory drifting backward. You close your eyes and inhale. And for the first time in eons, you don't feel like Zeus. Not the storm bearer. Not the God King, not the one who ruled the heavens. You feel like a son, just a son, sitting in the place where love once protected him, where a mother outwitted time itself to give her child a chance. You eat slowly, and when it's gone, you don't rise right away. You listen to the fire's soft crackle, to the wind humming through the stones, to the universe still vast, still unruled, still full of stories that have nothing to do with you. And it's okay, because now you understand. You were never meant to last forever. Just long enough to keep the storm at bay, to guide the fire forward, to raise gods braver than yourself. And when they come for the throne, whenever that may be, you won't hide. You'll smile. And maybe, just maybe, you'll hand them a bowl of soup first. Wind down. And now, as the last ember fades in that quiet cave and the storm settles somewhere beyond your reach, you can finally let go. The weight of thrones, the ache of prophecy, the pull of legacy, it all drifts away like steam into the night. You were Zeus, king of Olympus, bearer of thunder, breaker of titans, but you were also a son, a brother, a father. You were a god who feared his mother's soup, because deep down you knew, once you tasted it again, you'd remember what it meant to be small, and safe, and human. Let the echoes of that warmth hold you for a moment longer. Let your shoulders soften. Let the divine masks fall away. No need to wield lightning now. No need to watch the skies. The world turns without you. It always has. Outside the cave, stars continue their slow, ancient dance. Mountains breathe. Oceans hush. Somewhere far off, a new story begins, soft as the first stir of broth in a waiting pot. So sleep now. Curl gently into the dark, you've earned your rest. And if dreams come, let them be quiet ones. Let them taste of lentils and time and memory. Let them remind you that even gods are born from comfort, that every legend begins in the silence before a storm and ends in the calm after. Now breathe in and out, slow, easy. The night is long, but you are home. End of script. Sweet dreams.